Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scanner Monkey TV. This week, our guest is Rachel Greer. She is the esteemed, I don't know, are you like the CEO of your company, Think Cascadia?
The managing partner.
Managing partner, okay.
So since it's not a public company, it's not really the right term to use for CEO.
Yeah. You know what, one of the things that I think is interesting now is that people are coming up with like their own job titles when they have their own companies. So I try to have fun with it, like, because in Scanner Monkey, I'm the Queen Monkey, which I did not give myself that title, but seems to have stuck. So when I started my company is called Koala Commerce, my like Amazon company. That's not my store name. That's just my company. So I'm the chief marsupial.
Nice.
I decided to just want to have a sense of humor about it, right? Like, people
I
always
am
laugh.
so bad at those kind of things. I'm always so literal. I'm like, what is the right title for someone who started a partnership? So I Google, what's the right title for someone who started a partnership?
So many years, because I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. So many years, so many trying to come up with like the professional sounding title, and it's just like. So, but I met somebody else, and she's the head of the most successful independent toy retailer in the country, and she's very successful. And her job title is head magic maker. So I figure it's a new trend. We're you know. So, but you're the managing partner, which is an awesomely official title. And her company is called Think Cascadia. Is that right? Yep.
Solutions, but that's kind of lengthy for a URL. So our URL is thinkcascadia.com.
Gotcha. So thank you for coming on the show tonight. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about yourself, like your Amazon history, and so many years ago, a bouncing baby girl was born, and just start there and go.
No, it's kind of funny if you go backwards from where I'm at right now, which is after 7+ years at Amazon. I started as a consultant, and the way I got my job at Amazon is because I speak German, and I spoke German well enough because I had been teaching English in Austria. Because in my undergraduate studies I had a minor in Austria, and the reason I had a German minor in college is because I studied German in high school and junior high. And it all started in middle school. Person.
Well, my son is taking German, so maybe that will be his path as well.
It's interesting the twists and turns things take, but people told me that my master's degree in European history, because it's focused on early modern, which is the Renaissance to the French Revolution, they told me that I would not be able to get a job with said degree, and that was so not true. I got a job at Amazon with it. So,
all right.
Anyone who don't get a degree about something that you really love, then tell them no.
Okay.
You can get a perfectly good job.
So you have got a degree in history. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I have an MA in history and then an MBA that I got about, let's see, when did I graduate? I graduated 6 years ago now.
Okay. So what did you do at Amazon? And how did you get that job from being a history major to working at Amazon?
So
my curiosity.
So my first job at Amazon was actually investigating fraud. So I was in the same team that does seller performance and that kind of stuff, except that I was primarily on the buyer side, investigating like whether somebody's card was stolen or whether they had hacked into somebody else's Amazon account. Some of the funniest things were why things got queued for fraud. My very favorite was we learned about this whole thing in Germany about how online sex workers will get gift certificates, Amazon gift certificates. That's how they choose to get paid. And it looks really fraudulent because of the emails that they're being sent to, because of course they're online sex workers. And so it looks completely fraudulent, but it's actually totally legitimate. So that was a really interesting thing. And if you ever look at
avoid taxes,
it might be because it's not really actual income. But it's funny because at first I was like, this must be a scam. This has to be. And so of course the Google and of course this is something that's posted on
Are you guys, I hear Rachel's sound going in and out. Is that just me, or are you guys hearing that too? Rachel, it looks like maybe you have a bad connection. Do you think you could maybe get off and get back on again?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hearing you as well. So let me go ahead and move.
Okay. She's going to reboot or something and come back. So we're going to talk about Rhode Island, neither a road nor an island while you're gone. Because we definitely want to hear everything she has to say. Okay, so I'm going to keep my eye on the room to make sure, because she's probably going to come in as a viewer again. So I heard Rachel speak at the Resonate conference. Resonate was a conference here in Atlanta put on by the folks at Seller Labs, specifically Jeff Cohen. And I just was very impressed with her expertise, and she's a super nice person, and you know, interesting. She's now started her consulting firm, and similar to me in the sense that she's a mom, and she's, you know, a lot of the consultants that are working with her company are trying to, you know, find a creative way to work from home and be with their kids at least part-time, and, you know, have a more flexible work-life balance, which I think is something a lot of us try to do as Amazon sellers too. So I always love meeting business people, whatever they do, who are trying to find a creative way to make their lives work for their lives. I think it's a great thing. I hate hearing things like, oh, I had to put my kid in this horrible daycare program because I didn't have a choice. And because I feel like a lot of us have choices we don't know, and sometimes people really don't feel like they have a choice. So anyway, so that's Rachel. She spoke at Midwest Ecom. She's spoken at quite a few conferences. So she's definitely a very talented and knowledgeable speaker. All right, we have you back again. Are you there? No, hold on now. I don't have your sound. There we go. Hello?
Hey, can you see me okay, or is it a little bit dark in here?
It's kind of dark. It looks like you're in like a haunted house or something. That's okay. As long as we can hear you, I think we're happy. I mean, we'd love to see you.
Can you hear me all right?
Is that better, you guys? Why don't you talk for a little bit? Yeah, I think that's a better connection.
Okay, great. Even though the location isn't exactly well lit.
Okay, you know what? That's what we got to do.
Cool. All right, awesome. So I think that I was saying the role that I was in the fraud department. So that was the first place that I was at. Then I moved to the law enforcement team, which was part of the same department, but it was basically anyone who came to us from law enforcement, any issues that came up, then that would be something that
merchandise was stolen or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything where law enforcement was involved. There were a couple cases that were absolutely insane, just some crazy stuff that I can't give the details, but it was a fascinating job. One time we were contacted.
Can you give us a broad example without giving away any trade secrets?
Well, one time we were asked to take down classified information, so that's
okay.
Very interesting. And my question, of course, was how in the heck did someone get access to this? But that, you know, that was pre-Snowden, pre-Manning, everything. It was very interesting how someone was selling stuff on Amazon that was classified. Very interesting.
Was it like an ebook or?
It must have been set up like that, but yeah, it was definitely something that was not supposed to be on Amazon.
Yeah, your sound is much better now. So, so from working with law enforcement to find fraudulent sellers, what else? What happened next?
So that particular department is an operations department, and that's the department that everyone seems to know. A couple of years ago, it was a little bit easier to work with them because there were more people in corporate centers. Everything is going to India. And so one of my things was I see no future in this department except as a process improvement manager for a team in India that I didn't actually want to be involved with. The people are excellent. Every single person that I've worked with in India, you know, you always have a few bad apples, but in general, every person is great. As far as the work culture, then there's a lot of issues there. So that was a concern for me. So I decided to move to a different part of Amazon that was a little bit, let's say, better growth potential.
A better potential. What? Hold on. You muted yourself.
Oh, whoops! I'm clicking.
You're back. A better growth potential. Okay, got it.
I have a tablet, so in case if I tap anything, sometimes it randomly makes things happen that I don't quite intend.
Okay, well, I can unmute you, so we're good. No. I think we have a child asking for something.
We do. This is the great thing about working from home, right?
Yes. Hi, Svetlana. Svetlana is one of our members. She just joined us. When she.
Honey, I'll come help you in a minute. Go back downstairs, please.
Do you need to take a minute, Rachel? We can talk amongst ourselves again if you need.
He's fine. He's decided that he wants to have a cup for his soda instead of drinking out of the can.
It's a pretty big thing that only mommy can handle. Apparently, it's urgent. I handle things like that all the time too. I hear things like, "Help, mommy! I need your help right now!" And I come in. He's like, "Can you open this for me?" And I'm like, "Get your butt off the sofa and come over." It's just crazy.
Like, really, this is why I had to come in here. No, he's great, and that was actually like fast forward a few years. One of the reasons why I ended up leaving Amazon is I got tired of the whole get them ready in the morning and give them breakfast, go to work all day, come back, see them at dinner, get them ready for bed, and then go back to work. And literally every day was 10 to 12 hours every day. And on the weekend, I'd usually work at least one weekend a day and then sometimes two. So my work schedule was insane. And it's funny because I actually work around the same number of hours now, but I feel a lot less stressed about it.
Yeah.
And plus I'm at home. So if I really need to go downstairs and get a cup, then I can.
There you go. I think sneaking in those moments sometimes, like, I like working, but I also like being able to be flexible and take time out, take a break, give a hug, give a cuddle, those moments that you miss when you're not there.
Yep. And when you're gone all day, people schedule meetings up till 6 p.m. sometimes. And that was really annoying because it's like, I know I can't really leave South Lake Union because we were in the Seattle campus. There's no buses out of there. I think they've changed a little bit, but the parking is insane. It's at least $80 to $100 a month depending on where you are. And the buses, there's just no buses between 5 and 6, and so you couldn't leave before 6 anyway. But it was like, no, you're making me stay. Like, we don't even have like the illusion of being able to leave on time.
Yeah, that's really tough.
It got really overwhelming, and at the same time, it's just like, if you never see your kids, and my daughter was getting so annoyed about homework, and my husband was like, I just do not know what to do to help her, and I'm just, okay, you know what, time to make a change.
Yeah. So how long were you at Amazon before you made a change?
You mean moving departments, or how long was I at Amazon total?
Total.
I was at Amazon for 7.5 years. It was actually that half year that did me in.
Okay.
It was funny. For a long time, Amazon was very, shall we say, entrepreneurial, very, very focused on every employee owning their area, and you didn't have to worry about stupid paperwork type stuff that you would see with a lot of other companies. Just a lot less bureaucratic than a company of that size would be. In fact, in some ways, kind of funnily not bureaucratic, like to the point where people actively tried to play down any bureaucracy. The last couple of years I was there, it started getting really bureaucratic, and then the last manager that I had wanted me to fill out a form in PowerPoint. And there's a couple of reasons why that's the most awful thing that I ever heard working there. The first is that Amazon doesn't do PowerPoint, ever. You just don't do PowerPoint. There's this actual kind of joke about how new projects are launched at Amazon. You write a 6-pager, so it's basically a 6-page single-spaced paper. And people actually sometimes cheat and make it like 11 or 10-point font so they can fit everything into 6 pages. And you you go to the meeting room, you pass out all the paper versions of your paper, everyone reads it, marks on it, and writes all over it, and after 15 minutes, everyone's done reading, then you basically just yell at each other for like the next 45 minutes, complaining about this part of the paper, that part of the paper, or the assumptions over here, the assumptions over there, and then at the end, everyone's like, yeah, great job.
Great meeting.
And this is how things are done at Amazon. You know, you don't do PowerPoints. Like the whole idea of a PowerPoint presentation is like people just stare at you like, what do you do? And then the idea of combining a PowerPoint with a form, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. You can't run any metrics on a PowerPoint form. If it's in Excel, at least you can track like how many hours of meetings you were at over multiple weeks. You know, like is it improving or is it decreasing? Or are you spending a certain number of hours on email? Because he wanted us to actually like allocate things.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is the most crazy thing. I was like, if you want to know what meetings I'm at, I share my calendar with you. This is perfectly fine. And he was like, you did not make the form your own. And I'm really disappointed in how you didn't really take this on and really do something with the form. Okay. It's like, you didn't do it until the deadline. I'm like, you're right, because you gave me a deadline, so I met it.
That's right. Yeah,
but
America get very bureaucratic, and I know my husband struggled with that before he went out on his own as well. I've been on my own for a long time, so I haven't had to deal with that, but it's tough.
And he was the only manager the whole time that did stuff like that. I mean, I had multiple managers, and none of them asked me for stupid stuff.
Your format like, PowerPoint now.
Yeah, and it's just disrespectful in my opinion, because everyone at Amazon is working so hard.
Yeah. That
telling someone that their time is worth so little that they need to fill out a PowerPoint form, that was just like, no, I don't respect you. Then he said that I was undermining his authority, which might have been true.
Yeah. So. What, you? That's hard to believe that you would undermine somebody's authority who you didn't respect.
He was a very, let's say, very insecure person. He expected a lot of positional authority respect. And I'm not that kind of person. I respect people who can do a good job and who can demonstrate competence and who are intelligent and curious. And that was not him.
So you decided it was time for you to move on.
Mm-hmm.
So you left the Amazon mother and went out on your own.
Yeah. My website went live the day after my contract at Amazon ended. One day.
Right. So now tell me a little bit about your firm.
Mm-hmm. So when we first started, I actually had this idea that, can you see me?
Yes. For a second you froze, but you're good now.
Okay. When we first started, it was just me, and my specialty at Amazon was in the compliance department. So obviously I was in fraud before that, but the last 5 years I was there was specifically compliance. So I was doing recalls, product safety. I actually launched the restricted products teams. So whenever you get those emails that say this is a restricted product, that's all my fault.
So do you know how to make things restricted? If a company wants their product to be restricted, is that a thing you can help them with?
That's a different kind of restriction. So restricted product in this sense is a product compliance restricted product.
Oh, like a battery or something, right?
Well, so like supplements.
Right,
so certain kinds of supplements. Sorry, I'm getting requests for a cup again. Honey, you need to take that downstairs.
She's in the Seattle area. Somebody asked where she's based out of. Aww.
And you can get it later, honey, okay? He asks for soda, and then when the fizz gets on his lip, he gets upset.
Aww. He's lucky he gets to have soda.
Can you give me 1 second so I can take care of that?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to mute you, and then you just, when you come back, I'll unmute you, okay?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure. So this is our dark secret as to why the Scanner Monkey show is at 9 p.m. Eastern time, is because my little one's asleep, because otherwise every show would consist of this exact thing with me. So, but I really appreciate that Rachel came on during essentially the dinner hour there. So her background, she ended up moving into the compliance department, and she was explaining to me when we were talking ahead of the show that a lot of people focus on insurance and sort of like waiting until something goes wrong. But compliance is really about anticipating rules and regulations and understanding those in advance, and especially private label sellers and brand owners, a lot of them just aren't educated on what the laws are. And so they can get into really big trouble with compliance. So she works with companies now on that. Hello, darling.
Okay. Solved.
It's fine. All right.
And it appears that the lighting is better too. I don't look quite so haunted house.
There you go. Yes, your skin. Now you look like you have skin instead of gray skin. So that's nice. And
it's whatever the computer decides, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so the compliance piece was actually the reason I first started. We worked on a couple of escalations with sellers who didn't know anything. Let's put it that way. When I was at Amazon, same thing with vendors who didn't know what they were doing. So it's not just limited to sellers, but I figured that their vendors would have more resources than sellers, which I find is actually not true now. But at the time, I thought that vendors would have more resources than sellers. So I was going to target the seller population. I soon found out that a lot of people are not willing to pay for compliance support. They're perfectly happy to bring in their really, let's say, potentially unsafe products from AliExpress and just put it up for sale, and there you go. And no one's stopping anyone because it comes through AliExpress. A lot of times they're done through air parcel, and air parcel is less than $2,500, so you don't have to file for U.S. Customs. Customs barely looks at anything that comes in through air parcel. They figure that the volume is so small that the potential for damage to human health is low. So they basically have made a risk determination that is that small parcel stuff just isn't going to get looked at unless there's a tip, and that's it. And so from a regulatory perspective, it's really easy to get things in. And then from an Amazon perspective, there's so many products that Amazon doesn't have the time to go through everything. And further, they really only have the ability to look through FDA items. So from a selling perspective, if you're doing merchant fulfilled and you're ordering it directly, then almost no one will ever look at your products. And as a consumer, that freaks me out.
Right.
Because there's some really not cool stuff coming in from China. Just straight up not cool, covered in lead. Things that can be endocrine disruptors, things that can make your thyroid very ill. And they're brought in every day. And people are so obsessive. You know, there's a lot of people I know who are really obsessive about eating organic, and they're all like, I'm not going to eat this gluten-free thing because it messes with my digestion. And I'm like, actually, it's probably all the Chinese crap you're using that messes with your digestion. There's a particular product that's used to make plastic bendy, so it'll make it nice and like a plug-in cord, for example. They're basically called plasticizers, and the product type is called phthalates. And a phthalate in the body acts like estrogen. So what that does is it actually disrupts the endocrine system and makes it to where your lymph nodes don't process liquids as well, to where your body thinks that it's overwhelmed with estrogen. It causes really unpleasant side effects, and it's in nearly every product you can think of made of plastic. Awful. And the other thing that's really awful is that there's no regulations on it except in the state of California. And there, the only regulation that is required is that you get one of those little warning things that said, this product contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer or reproductive harm. That's all you've got to do. You just have to label it and then you're done. And this is the regulatory environment in the US. It's terrible.
A lot of products are voluntarily labeling phthalates and BPAs, but there is no regulation. If something says it doesn't have phthalates in it, I don't know that there's like anyone's making them prove it.
Right. Only for children's products. And obviously it has a much bigger effect on children. So girls have their periods or develop earlier than they should be with these kind of products. And then boys are more girly just because of the way that it disrupts the endocrine system. So yeah, it's not cool. And it's something where I was like, I know I'm going to go out there, I'm going to tell people about this, and everyone's going to be so interested. Not at all. What I found is that the only thing people were actually interested was product quality. And that was because Amazon has a product quality team that enforces this stuff. And I know that they're working on this new safety incident work as well. So that's coming from product quality. It's not coming from product compliance in Amazon. It's coming from the product safety team, and they're enforcing so-called safety incidents. And what's really, really ridiculous about that is that they don't know anything about safety. So you just give them a response just like you do with product quality. Like the normal quality type response is, okay, I brought it back from the FC and I looked at it and everything is okay, and I removed a few items that were not compliant. I sent it back in. They're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. We actually sent in proper compliance documents on one of these items for our client, And the team actually was like, no, you're not allowed to sell. Like, no, these are the real compliance documents proving they're safe. You guys are dumb.
Oh.
So
Well,
it's really quite sad that the only enforcement team that exists at Amazon doesn't really know anything at all about compliance. And if they're trying to enforce on compliance, it's very confusing if you're a seller.
so let me ask you this. One of the things as sellers that we find so frustrating is that Amazon seems to be making buckets of money, but yet when you hear things like this where compliance isn't well staffed and performance, like seller performance, is understaffed. I mean, people say that they get, they get a hit, they get suspended, and it takes 3 weeks before somebody even reads an email because they're just so busy. So, and all these hidden things where like, well, we're not really going to tell you what's wrong. You just have to figure it out and stuff like that. What is how can that be? Explain it to us, because we don't understand.
So part of that is that I think that the management in those teams hasn't figured out a good way to monetize what they do. So they're basically just cost on the company. It's incredibly hard to get new headcount if you're just a cost center, if you bring in no profit whatsoever. So if they're not actually bringing in anything, then it's very difficult for them to get new headcount. And most of the time it's easier to get new headcount in India. And I had mentioned that I wasn't a big fan of the way that Indian teams are managed before. And the main reason is because I actually had to launch one. And I launched a team of nearly 100 people in India. And I went there and trained people and did a lot of work in the first 6 months. In the first 6 months, things worked out fine. We got a lot of support. The team there did a good job. We were able to do our own quality assurance evaluations and improve. And we actually got a couple of people let go from the team who were not performing well. But as we actually hired on local management, the way that Indian companies work is they really don't let people go. That's just not how things happen. So the way that they compensate for less than stellar employees is the rest of the employees have to compensate for them. So we actually had a situation in which I was pretty sure that there was an employee that was not doing a good job. They claimed that he was visiting his grandmother or something, and I was like, you didn't visit your grandmother for the entire month. You did one case in 1 month. That's ridiculous. Like, we can't hire one person who does one case in 1 month. And that's insane. So what they did is in September, the numbers looked way better for this guy. And I told my team, like, no, dig into it, figure out where those cases came from. And we looked at every single one of his cases that he supposedly did and found out that all of his teammates had transferred them to him so that he could resolve them, even though he'd done no work on the case. And so this was a way in which they would protect their own team members at the expense of the quality of the team. And this happened over and over again, and no one made any changes, no one made any difference. So it's very difficult to improve those teams, and that's who's doing all the work. And you can't hire people in Seattle anymore because it's too expensive. It's not really accepted. You have to hire them in India. And then this is what happens in India. So when there is no data behind what you're going for, then you can almost never get something approved at Amazon. So if you're trying to figure out why it's so difficult to work with seller performance, it's because somebody crunched the numbers internally and decided it was cheaper to hire someone in India than in the US, and didn't crunch the numbers on how many contacts it takes for someone to resolve something in India versus how many contacts it takes for someone to resolve something here, or they didn't run the contact information on quality of the results in India versus the results here. If you aren't running those numbers and making a numbers case to the management at Amazon, then you lose. And so somebody just failed to do that.
It seems to me that if you turn those cases around faster, then people would earn more money. So you would be able to count that as a rep. Like, well, we got our people suspended.
No one pulled that data.
Free, so we have this much more revenue than you would have had. But I guess that's not how they do it.
Well, you have to be the person who holds the data. So there's no central team that pulls data. You have to do it yourself for your own department. So if you're fairly good at pulling data or know where to pull the data from, like I was able to pull data that showed that the numbers for India versus Seattle was 3 times as productive as India per person, which is hugely different, right?
Although probably still way more than 3 times more expensive, though.
No, it's actually pretty even.
Oh, okay.
They're about a third of the cost on average than a Seattle worker of the same level of experience. Because the level of experience I'm talking about is like right out of college.
Right.
You don't have to pay them that much. But yeah, so it basically is a wash. So obviously it's expensive to grow the business in Seattle, so you've out somewhere else where it's less expensive when the workers are awash, which is, in my view, short-sighted. I personally was like, come on, let's do Western Kentucky. Or no, Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is cheaper. So Eastern Kentucky is like the cheapest place in the U.S. to hire labor right now. I would love to be able to build the whole thing in Eastern Kentucky, but that would have been a huge project. I didn't get approval for that either.
Okay.
But they did start 3 customer service centers in that area. So there's, I think, something like 7,000 jobs now in that area because the economy is so depressed. It's actually cheaper to hire people in Kentucky than it is to hire them in the Philippines or India. And that is sad.
Good for Kentucky, though. Turn Kentucky around and another couple of years, then, we'll pick another depressed area and maybe move in and get people some, although I wonder how many of the native people, like the people that live there, are getting those jobs and how many people are moving there to get those jobs from other places, but that's a different conversation. So, so that's interesting. One of the things I think that is really clear, both from when I've spoken with you and when I talked to James, is that it's clear that Amazon is extremely focused on data, and that if you can understand how to gather data, interpret data, present data, that it will help you be more successful there. Yep. And
I mean, it's just there's no question. If you don't have data, then no one listens to you. Okay. And even when you're filing reports, like if you're filing a report against another seller, which by the way is how you do it. If somebody is doing something wrong, don't assume Amazon will find it. Actually, part of the whole process is that you need to report other sellers. Ratting out other sellers is an explicit part of Amazon policy. So if someone does make a mistake and you want to inform Amazon of that, that's exactly what they're going for. So if you're doing that, though, you want to make sure that you include the URL of their store, because in the URL is their seller ID. And so it's easier for the Amazon rep to find it. In general, the reps have about 3 to 4 minutes to resolve your issue. So you want to give them as much information as possible. So yeah, everything is run on numbers and data and clicks and time, and and the person on the other end of the computer really only has a few minutes. So when you're sending them a ticket or when your oil case and when you're sending them information, you always want to keep that in mind, that they really only have 3 to 4 minutes to solve your problem. They have to read your issue, not in their native language. They have to understand your issue. They have to open your account. They have to look at the issue. They have to decide the proper next steps. They have to set up the email back to you. They have to send it. And they have to annotate your account. And they have to do all this within 3 or 4 minutes. So if you ask them multiple questions, or if you have multiple ASINs in there, or if you have anything that is, if you looked at it and you were like, this would probably take me more than 3 or 4 minutes to resolve if I had all the tools at my disposal, then you need to simplify your case. Otherwise, you're running the risk of them looking at it, realizing it's too complicated, and giving you a stupid response back so that they can meet their time requirement.
Interesting. So that's a really good tip. So that when you're contacting seller support, make sure that your case can be resolved in 4 minutes or less, or simplify it, or split it up into a couple different cases.
Yep.
So that they
exactly. And don't put multiple cases in the same case, and that's what. Yep. I mean, they're incentivized to meet those time goals, and they will meet them, because otherwise they'll lose their job. So.
Right.
That's their incentive, right?
Yeah, and that's a powerful incentive. I mean, didn't you say something like the bottom 10% gets fired every year, right? Although I guess in India now you're saying nobody's getting fired.
Well, the attrition rate is so high. That's why. So the attrition rate is about 30%. So their attrition rate is so high that they don't want to lose anybody that's actually there. But in Seattle, yeah, 10% every year minimum get put on what's called the needs improvement list. And anyone who's on needs improvement automatically gets put on an improvement plan. And a lot of people do succeed in their improvement plans, but plenty of people don't, or decide to voluntarily quit instead of be forced out.
Okay. So try to have your support tickets be solvable in 4 minutes or less. The other thing that I just recently learned about, and that you reinforce, is that in addition to each person that works at Amazon having an account that they get rated, like when we get responses to our help tickets, it's important that we go in and give them a star rating because that helps them. Mm-hmm. We each have a file, right?
About your seller rating?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you do. Yep.
So, like,
All of your annotations, all of your correspondence, every single thing you've done, listed, connected with, all of your relations, your everything is stored.
So it's important that you do a good job when you're contacting seller support for that reason as well, and because
yeah, so it's on 2 separate systems. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Seller support is on a different system than seller performance.
Right.
So sometimes people get really confused. They're like, I already sent you that information. Why are you asking for it again? And it's because they sent it to seller support instead of seller performance, so they sent it to seller performance. The seller support can't see what seller performance sees, and seller performance can't see what seller support sees. They're on 2 entirely different systems. They do not cross at all. So that's another reason why sometimes people are like, why are they asking me for something so stupid? It's because it's a different team.
Okay, so that's interesting, and I think that in general, you know, it's easy to think like, oh, it's one big company, but really Amazon is like a bunch of little slices of pie that are all separate from each other.
Yep.
Like,
and there's some
performance and seller support are totally separated. The people who maybe help you get your international account set up have nothing to do with anything else. I talked to somebody who's launched the Mexico business, and I was asking him all these questions. He's like, I have no impact on any of that. And I was like, why not? So.
Yep, every team is different just because that's how it's set up. In fact, they even get paychecks from different companies. It's actually set up that way legally too. So while I was there, I got paid by 2 different companies.
Okay.
Actually, no, it was I reported to 3 different companies while I was there because we got moved around a bit.
Were they all like part of Amazon or just totally separate?
Oh yeah, they're all part of the parent company, but they all had their own legal entity.
Okay. All right, so do we have any more questions for Rachel about the internal workings of Amazon? This is one thing that I would love to ask you is there's been finally some buzz in the news about the Chinese counterfeit situation, and there's brands that are pulling back because Amazon's not really enforcing. You know, it's frustrating because it seems like I can look at a listing and I can instantly tell, oh, this is being shipped from China. It's probably counterfeit. Like, even my son is like, how could you tell that? Because there was something he wanted for Christmas, and he showed me, he's like, I found it on Amazon, so this is what I want. And this is my older son, my 14-year-old. I said, oh, they're just shipping you that from China. Let me see if I can find on AliExpress cheaper. And I did. But if I can spot that, I don't understand, why can't Amazon?
So they can. The thing that's a problem, oh, so like someone's at the door. The thing that's a problem is that you have the combination of, sorry, it's
okay.
Distracting.
We can't actually hear it very much. I'm sure it's very loud for you, but whatever mic you have.
Okay, but you can't hear it very much? Okay.
Really
I can ignore it if you can't hear it. So the concern is really, here, can I actually, I'm going to get completely distracted because they just rang the doorbell.
I'm going to go see who's right back. Go right ahead. All right, so Rachel's going to go to the door. I muted her for a minute. But yeah, the case of the Chinese counterfeit, it seems obvious to us, and I'm still kind of curious how come Amazon's not doing a better job of dealing with it. And I think they probably will, like maybe in the next 5 years, but for those of us who are trying to make a living today, it can be a little challenging. I hope that more large companies do make a stink, because when large companies make a stink and it gets media attention, then that is going to get more results than a million of us little, even the biggest third-party seller is still small potatoes to Amazon. So, even if you sell 5, 10, 20, $40 million a year, you're still a smaller business than like Mattel. So, okay, she is back. Hello, darling. I have you unmuted now.
Okay. And, it's funny because normally it wouldn't be quite this crazy. My husband would be taking care of everything. But he got the flu.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for still coming on the show.
He's sleeping, so that's why it's so crazy.
Oh, well, thank you for juggling. I appreciate that. I was saying on one of your breaks that part of why we do our show at 9 p.m. for me on my time is because that's when my little one's asleep. because I have the otherwise I would exactly the same thing. I would be constantly interrupted, and but it's very hard if mom's home.
Yep. And if daddy's asleep, then
yeah,
guess you can answer everything.
So, well, thank you for juggling. And if you need to step away again, it's totally fine. So that's
no worries. Thank you for being patient.
It's our pleasure. We're glad to have you here. And look, we're all about helping each other. So that's our thing as Scanner Monkey. So, awesome. We'll make sure to end the show on time so you can get back. Your little one's doing great.
Yeah. Well, I told him, I reminded him that he got soda, so he needs to be quiet. And so he was like, oh, okay.
Okay. Yes. Soda's the ultimate payment form. So, so we're talking about Chinese counterfeits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the thing that's interesting is you have competing interests within Amazon. So you have one team, like the FBA team and the selling team, that are really interested in getting directly to Chinese factories, because their whole concept is if we can go directly to the factory, then we can get even more money. And we can get more people involved because the size of like Taobao is just huge, right? So if you think of the size of the Chinese market and how many products on the Chinese market, and then you have the product compliance team, which I was on, we used to sit in these meetings and just be appalled and start like trying not to yell at people, because we point out that these Chinese factories have no idea how to make compliant US goods. Very few of them are actually compliant. So a lot of times when you tell them, and we do this all the time for our clients, when we tell them we need to be compliant in the US, and you need to meet Prop 65, you need to meet CPSI, and they're like, oh, okay, no problem, we'll get you the custom materials. So it's custom to be compliant. It's normal not to be. So that's the thing that you should always keep in mind when ordering from China. The custom materials are the compliant ones. And it's even more so if you're going to Europe. So if you're trying to sell stuff, then trying to get Chinese sellers on the site is a good idea. If you're trying to protect the consumer or protect the platform, so you have product compliance and product quality on one side of the platform, and you have FBA and merchant services on the other side of the platform, and one's trying to push Chinese sellers, the other's trying to protect the consumer and protect the platform. And so they're basically just in like a pitched battle internally. They're constantly having arguments and meetings, complaining about this or complaining about that. And basically it just comes down to who comes up with the better arguments and then they win, or who comes up with the better tools and they win. But that's how it's been for years, is the whole company is like that, where you have basically autonomy over your area, and then you basically act like your own little company and then interact with the rest of Amazon as though it's its own little company too. So I figure, just from my experience and my time out, I figure that probably product quality will start taking over the Chinese issue. And that's unfortunate in a lot of ways, because product quality is probably the worst team to deal with. They're doing a lot of their work based on qualitative factors rather than quantitative factors. If you're dealing with seller performance, you have late shipment rates, you have tracking ID rates, you have ODR. It's very straightforward, and negative feedback is very straightforward. It's 1 through 5. Like, there's no like ambiguity there. When you're working with product quality, everything is qualitative. It's somebody who said that it looked scratched, or it looked used, or it looked inauthentic, or it looked fake. There's nothing quantitative about those things.
Right.
But sometimes people say, oh, well, you can just look at the number of not as described returns. It's absolutely not true. They don't do anything by the numbers in product quality. It's all qualitative. So they're looking at the actual description that the customer gave, and there's like a little line item. When you submit your return, you can say it looked used or something like that. That's what they're using to enforce on. FBA sellers don't get to see that, by the way. But they see it internally, and then they enforce on you for it that you can't even see, which is another problem. So this team is enforcing on sellers for things they can't even see, for qualitative things. And this is the team that most likely will be involved in trying to protect the platform from Chinese sellers, which makes me both scared and positive, because that means that all of their ineptness will be used against the Chinese sellers. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't really know.
Do you think that the media attention that this situation is getting is going to force Amazon's hand to make it better?
Media attention never really made a difference. It's metrics internally. So if there's metrics internally that show that there's lost sales, or that show that there's lost sales either from a customer perspective or from a selection perspective, then they'll do something. Otherwise, they don't do anything. They ignore the media.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sarah wants to know, how long ago did you leave Amazon?
May 28th of 2015.
Not that you're counting.
I know exactly the day.
About a year and a quarter.
Yep. Exactly.
Do you think that Amazon will make more products restricted, like Star Wars mugs that just got restricted? I don't know if you know about that.
The way that they do that is really based on complaints. So if there are multiple complaints of counterfeit from customers, once it hits a certain threshold of complaints and takedowns, then they'll make the effort of restricting the brand. Basically, Amazon's always fighting a balance between having a perfect catalog and having a wide selection. And so it's always like a teeter-totter. Which one is going to lose, the selection or the perfect catalog? And often the perfect catalog is what loses.
Right.
But when it's something that's really egregiously bad, like a Star Wars product, I would be surprised if there's any Star Wars or Frozen products by Q4 that aren't gated. That would be surprising to me.
Yeah. So, hold on, we have a question here. I'm just trying to read it. So do you have any hope for us, like working with this giant machinery of Amazon? Do you think that if there's challenges, it's important to work with somebody like you who knows the internal system?
I think it's getting to be more so, which is kind of unfortunate, not for me, it's fortunate for me, but it's unfortunate for everyone else. But Amazon's basically trying to reduce overhead in any way possible. So a couple of years ago, they eliminated associate vendor managers. Yeah. Associate vendor managers are the ones who helped the vendors get things organized and solve questions in the queue. They moved the entire associate vendor manager role to India. So now it's all done by ticket. So that team is RBS. Instead of seller support, it's RBS, Retail Business Systems. So that's happened on the vendor side. Same thing is starting to happen on the seller side, where they're just getting rid of certain teams that they think aren't important to the running of Amazon from a profit standpoint. But what that does is it means that there's fewer and fewer people who can actually answer questions. And then the teams that do exist for answering questions, the average tenure is 6 to 9 months, and they don't know anything. So,
right.
So you're having this whole situation where the people who are working at Amazon don't know anything, and so people who left, who know enough about the inner workings to figure out where they're going next, who actually know what's going on. And if you join groups on LinkedIn, for example, you can see this. It's the people, I see them a lot in the different groups people I used to work with, a few years ago or more at Amazon, where I'm like, yeah, I used to work with you, and now you're doing the same thing I am.
Right.
So it's kind of funny because that's kind of where Amazon's going. The more they can outsource, the cheaper it is for them. If they can make the vendor or the seller pay for the help, then Amazon doesn't have to pay for the help. So it's a good proposition for Amazon to basically force the outsourcing of this work.
Interesting. So Amazon is purposely making it so that we have to pay money for consultants so that they don't have to hire.
I don't know if it's purposeful, but they're not going to stop it from happening.
Right.
There's not very much at Amazon that's purposeful.
Okay.
A lot of things kind of happen because somebody had a project to reduce costs.
Okay. Can you comment on the recent sufficient inventory quantity issue?
The one where if you try to send it in, they say Amazon already has enough inventory for this. You don't get to ship it in. Yeah, so a lot of people were treating the FCs as warehouses. And so there's a bunch of extra quantity of inventory that they don't need really. So Amazon's got all these algorithms to decide how much is going to be sold of a particular product. So if they say that in the next 3 weeks, they are going to sell 400 units of the product, and they see right now they have 500 units in stock, well, they don't need any more, right? So then they'll not take any more for now. Now in a week, you could check the same thing, and they may need it because they had a run on the product, and now they only have 300 units. They still have projected that they're going to sell 400 in the next 3 weeks, and so then you get to ship something in. It's all algorithm based.
And what about, like, I knew this, but I just kind of absorbed it yesterday. I mean, the storage fees for the warehouse have gone up, and now they're really jacking them up for November and December.
Yep.
You'd think
the FCs get completely crowded that time of year.
Is it most of the time they pay it to sell it, or is it because, I mean, I would think they'd want to have inventory.
Yeah, the problem is there's not enough FC space. So there, I think there's well over 100 FCs now. But every year, because Amazon's grown so exponentially, no matter how fast they build the FCs, there's never enough in Q4. Right. So every year, the FCs run at 99% capacity. And I used to work in recalls, and so I was doing the reverse logistics, trying to get something that was recalled out of the FCs. And you can imagine how hard it is. If you think of how hard it is to get something into the FCs, it is ridiculously hard to get it out because that direction makes no money. There's no tools. There's no ability to do it. It's awful. So for that, every single time I would have a recall in Q4, I would have to submit my tickets for removal as quickly as possible because I was taking up space, and people would send me tickets and get mad at me for having recalled inventory left in the facility. And it's like, okay, I'm doing my best here. So even something like recalled inventory, which there's no control over, it's either recalled or it's not. There's no way to predict that.
Right.
So even something like that, I would still get people in my face for having so much recalled inventory. I'm like, guys, I have no way of predicting this. I'm doing my best here. Right. So if you can imagine just with things that you can't predict, if they can predict the demand for it, they're going to do as much as they can to free up space.
Okay. Well, it seems like, when I first started selling, everybody said, oh, if you have anything, you just send it in, it'll sell. But that has definitely changed in the last few years. I mean, now, there's definitely, even the product that I'm bringing in, that I'm private labeling, I'm planning on mostly housing it in an offsite warehouse and just sending in, a month or two's worth of inventory.
Yeah, I usually think
I guess what they want.
Yep. Yeah, they really only want 3 to 4 weeks of cover. For vendors, they actually expect vendors to do 7 to 10 days of cover.
Yeah, I know. It's very
tight for vendors.
To work with them. Yeah. So I just reading through the questions here. Do you think Amazon would ever put an "Are you sure?" question on the one-click button? I have periodic rashes of cancellations for I didn't order that on some of my merchant fulfilled items. Are you sure? I think they do that on the one click. There is
they don't.
Validation on it.
It's definitely a
click, and they're like, are you, there is like a, I don't know, maybe I'm misremembering it.
Yeah, for mine on my phone, there is no check.
Okay.
So it literally is one click. You click once and it's on its way.
It's on its way.
I have done that on accident. Well, I didn't do it on accident. My son was actually looking at a product with me. We were trying to decide on curtains for his room, and we were looking at minion curtains. And he was like, "Ooh, Mommy, I like that one." And he stabbed his finger at it and hit the one click. And I was like, "Congratulations, that's the one you're getting because you just ordered it."
You ordered it, honey. So we're saying on these, we have Richard in the audience saying that on the recent sufficient inventory quantity issues that there are some of those that are getting flagged that have no FBA sellers. So I guess it's just algorithm based, and that they still, they don't anticipate that there's a lot of demand for it.
Right. So if you have something that you really need to get rid of, one thing you can also do is you can also try to drive traffic to that listing in some way. You obviously can't because internally to Amazon you can't, because you only get to drive those ads when you have the buy box. But you can actually run Google ads. Like if you really, really need to get rid of something, I would suggest selling it to someone else. But if you, for whatever reason, really want to sell it, then you can always try to increase traffic externally. That's something I can think of to do it to where there's enough traffic coming in that Amazon thinks it needs more inventory.
Okay.
But until that algorithm changes, then that's not going to change. The other thing to do is to wait until like October when people start buying more stuff. Right. Halloween inflatables.
What are your thoughts on seller fulfilled Prime?
I think it could be a game changer. The problem is not very many people can do seller fulfilled Prime. It's really hard to turn something around as fast as Prime usually does. Although there's some exceptions to that now since they realize that it's so expensive to do. So a lot of long tail Prime items do not show up within 2 days. But for seller fulfilled Prime, if any sort of external warehouses can get in on it, I think that they'd have quite an offering to provide sellers, because what people do is they click on Prime. They're not clicking on FBA or Amazon or Merchant Fulfilled. They're looking at Prime. So if there's a way to get seller fulfilled Prime badge, then that would be awesome. I have a friend at Amazon who has basically worked through the entire process of how to onboard someone for seller fulfilled Prime. and he's very proud of this process. He also was the one who signed Marshawn Lynch and Beast Mode stuff to Amazon, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, go Marshawn. But yeah, so self-fulfilled prime, I think, could be a huge thing. It's just how it's done and who's going to do it. From what I can tell, it looks like you have to meet 2-day shipping regularly before you can even be considered for it.
Right.
So that's a pretty difficult hurdle to overcome.
Right. Do you have any insight on the future of retail arbitrage on Amazon?
When I first learned about it, I did not believe it was a thing. It was like, yeah, how can this possibly be real? People go to Walmart and resell it. And I think part of that is that I live in the Seattle area, and buying on Amazon is the cheapest way to buy. There's almost no situation in which buying on any other platform in the store or online is going to be cheaper than Amazon. And a big part of that is that Seattle just raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and the whole region is just really well off anyway. So any sort of physical store you go into, it's going to be expensive. And so I was like, how in the world can you make any money doing this? And I was like, oh yeah, duh. Other parts of the country.
Eastern Kentucky, for example.
So people in other parts of the country are able to buy things at a much cheaper rate than people in my area.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have this arbitrage thing that's happening on a regional basis. So if you're in those kind of areas and you can get good deals and you can get that, then I could see how there would be a future for that. The areas that I see as a potential problem for arbitrage are two. The first, you froze.
What?
Are you still there? If everything
I'm here.
froze.
You visually froze, but we could still hear you, so that's why I didn't say anything. You were just kind of like,
okay.
You kept talking, you weren't moving, so I was just trying to go with it.
Okay, cool. Because everything froze here too. I was like, they can hear me. So the first thing is a lot of brands.
Audio.
A lot of brands are now getting onto Amazon on their own on the seller side. So a lot of brands previously were just working with Amazon on the vendor side. And I've actually heard people say, they actually have said before that they don't make any money on Amazon. They just sell it for the marketing purposes. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you sell if you're not making any money? And a lot of people are realizing that moving to the seller side and the vendor side, they can make at least twice as much, which then makes the whole venture profitable. Right. So there's the first part of it, which is a lot of brands are going to start selling on Amazon, which increases the number of times that they're going to start sending you those nasty C&D letters and trying to kick you off the listing. So one thing that's really unfortunate is that a lot of brands are sending complaints to notice at Amazon.com to complain about rights owner infringement, when actually what they're complaining about is distribution infringement, which is a totally different issue, but they're complaining about it being inauthentic. And that's really unfortunate because it really affects your good standing on Amazon. That can actually get you suspended. So I would say that that's a big issue going forward, is that brands are now going to go on Amazon themselves. A lot of them are. We've got some of those clients who are going on and cleaning up their listings, booting off other sellers, merging listings, complaining about other sellers.
Right.
And of course, we're helping them learn how to do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just that I think there will be less and less ability to do it going forward, just because there's going to be less and less ability to do arbitrage like that. Maybe that's a more optimistic viewpoint, but I think part of the reason why it was so successful is because there are whole parts of the country that are still depressed from the Great Recession. And hopefully those areas start to do a little bit better. Seattle came out of the recession about 4 years ago entirely. I know Seattle is definitely ahead of a lot of other places, but hopefully things continue to move forward and those areas stop being quite so depressed.
Absolutely. So we're at the top of the hour, and I know you have a sick husband and children. I don't want to delay you. We do have a request from Sarah in the audience. We have so the women's conference is coming up. Are you attending that?
No, I'm not. They only invited high volume sellers from what it looks like.
Yes, that's definitely been my experience too. But we actually have quite a few members who are going, Scanner Monkey members. And then there's like a Facebook group of people that are going. And Sarah is asking if you would be interested in hosting something on Wednesday morning, whether it be a talk or a conference or a breakfast or something like that. So I don't know if you have any interest in that.
Oh, like actually in Seattle.
So can she PM you about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Sarah, great initiative. Sarah's a very, very successful seller. She and her husband are, and so she'll be going. So great. So Rachel's hosting a party. But thank you.
You're at a good place for it.
There you go. So we have, you know what? I have just a few announcements, but I know you have like a lot of family stuff going on, so I'm going to let you go for the announcements so you don't have to listen to them if you don't want. You can if you want. It's not that long. Thank you so much for coming on. Rachel's now a member of Scanner Monkey, so if you have any questions for her, we can pose them in the group or you can PM her. She's been very generous with her expertise. And
if you PM me, don't be surprised if I don't respond immediately because it hides those messages. So I look occasionally, but the way Facebook does it hides them, and then you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I did that when I first started being part of Scanner Monkey and having more people that I didn't know message me. I went at one point and I had like 6 months worth of messages that I never ever checked, and I was like, whoops. So now I try to check them regularly because now I know. But at the beginning, I had no idea. So it is definitely challenging managing communications through Facebook. But you can also tag her in a post, or I can tag her in a post if it's relevant to her expertise. So, and you will be speaking at Retail Global
in Vegas
next month, or in September in Vegas. And Retail Global, we just got a discount for. We have a $100 off code. If you remember, you can get $100 off, and if you sign up by the end of July, you get an extra $200 off. So if you want to go, sign up now. So thank you so much, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for all of the patience during the interruptions.
No problemo. And I look forward to talking to you at some point soon.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to let her get back to her family. In terms of Retail Global in Vegas, I'm not sure if I'm going. I'm still thinking about it. I know I need to make a decision, but like Rachel, I have a young child, and so it's basically would mean leaving on a Monday and coming back on a Friday, and that's kind of a long trip for me. So I don't know. So I will let everybody in the audience know as soon as I know. I will let people in Scanner Monkey know as soon as I know. I'm definitely leaning towards going, but I just have to work out and see logistically if it's going to work for our family. I will definitely be going to Ecom Chicago in October. I will be speaking at Ecom Chicago, and we are sponsoring the event. So we'll definitely be there. I did want to mention, I think I mentioned at the beginning, we got some new discounts this week. Those are in the group. Next week's show is on conferences. Actually, we're going to have Jeff Cohen speak, he's going to be our guest. But he is a service provider. He's with Seller Labs, but he has attended like 5 gazillion conferences, both as a sponsor and as just an attendee. And so he and I are going to discuss conferences, the good, the bad. How do you decide which conference is the right one for you to attend in terms of the time and financial investment? And so we're going to talk about that next week. And I think the week after we might be doing a show on retail arbitrage. I'll have details on that in the group. And if you are watching and not a member, please go ahead and join Scanner Monkey. We are the best group around. We are all about helping each other. It's only $19.99 a month, and we are definitely here to serve each other. And we're not a guru-centered group. We are all about the tribe and helping each other that way. So that is Scanner Monkey. That is our upcoming show. Are there any questions about anything? I don't think so. We have a couple deadlines. I mentioned the one deadline with Retail Global. So if you want to sign up to go, you should sign up before July, like by Sunday night, because Monday the price goes up $200. And I don't know what their refund policy is. You should ask. I can ask if somebody, I'll try to remember to ask. But anyway, you should sign up this weekend. The other deadline we have is that we're working with Stephen Sawyer, who runs our Scanner Monkey International group. His class, International Arbitrage, has a deadline. If you sign up for the class before, same deadline, July 31st, or by the end of July 31st, you get you get a free lifetime membership to Scanner Monkey. If you're already a lifetime member, PM me and we'll work out something with you. So we have an arrangement for people that have already paid for their lifetime membership. But for those who haven't, your membership will be converted. You will be a lifetime member of Scanner Monkey, plus you will get the course. The course is $1,497, so $1,497. If you sign up by the end of July, in addition to the free Scanner Monkey membership, you also get, so the course comes with its own private Facebook group, which normally will only be free for 4 months. But if you sign up for the course before the end of July, you'll actually have lifetime membership to that group as well. So as they add Japan and India and other countries come on board, and just as the group becomes tighter as a mastermind, you'll be able to stay in that group. After July 31st, if you take the course, you'll be in that group for 4 months, and then after that you'll have to pay to be in that group. I think $50 a month or something like that. So again, if you're thinking about signing up for the class, do it before the end of July. I'm in the class. I'm very excited about it. And we have a number of other members that are taking it. If you're interested in that, the link is scannermonkey.com/international. Now we will have, okay, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So what do you get if you do by the end of July? You get the group, the Facebook group that comes with the class. You get that free for life, as well as Scanner Monkey for life. And you also get a set, Steve, and I don't know, came up with like the perfect box size. I still haven't done enough international stuff to understand this completely, but he came up with like the perfect box size for shipping stuff to the UK, and you get a set of those boxes when you sign up. So that is by the end of July. If you want to take the class, if you wait till August to sign up, you still get your free Scanner Monkey lifetime membership. But what you don't get is the free lifetime membership to the course group, and you don't get the boxes. So that's the deal with that. And that's scannermonkey.com/international. So those are our two like end of July deadlines that are coming up. And then we have the August deadline with long-term storage fees will hit August 15th. So mark your stuff down, sell it out, and then make sure you dispose of it before August 15th. We do have our new, Karen asked about the Scanner Monkey UK group. We have actually changed the name of that group. So now it's called Scanner Monkey International. We definitely still have that group going. That is a free group right now, so join it if you're interested in international. That group is not going anywhere. Steve is still administering that group. That is like separate from the class. You don't have to be in the class to be in that group. It's just called Scanner Monkey International. So yeah, we absolutely are keeping that group going. This other group I'm talking about is part of the class. It's the class group, and that's the one that you get the free lifetime membership for if you take the class. Okay, so those are our two deals coming up, and we have our show and conference. I think that's everything. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the group, and hopefully in October at Ecom Chicago. All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.